Sound good? We good on sound?
We sound great. We always sound great. I mean, you come through with the nice, undertones of Cameroon. I come through with the raspy, squeaky Oklahoma. It works. It works. One of my favorite comments on this on my channel, and I'm being facetious here for those of y'all that really think that I'm being serious, is I did not expect that voice to come out of that face, and I'm going, yeah, man, it's that easy to get blocked. Like, we can do that. I'm not gonna put up. That's the thing. Like, the folks that get into the comments on your stuff and think they can tell you off like it's just gonna live there. Yeah. Like, nah, man, I don't need this from you. I don't. That's not why we do this. If you want to have a discussion about what we're talking about, by all means. But I mean, I don't know about you, but I become the subject of the video lickety split for somebody all the time.
People are crazy, man.
Yeah.
People are crazy. I mean, anyway, we can rant about this. Some of the comments or things that people don't understand, and their lack of understanding or their confusion turns into anger towards you. That's a you problem, sir, not me.
Oh man. And then the whole game of getting a video up, and that yes. All right. So I want to talk to you about Texas. I want to talk to you about football at large. But first, I'm going to do something I don't normally do. How do you feel about your man's Chris Beard and your man's Shaka Smart, getting up out of here to go to Marquette?
So with Chris Beard, by the way, check out my videos on Chris Beard situation from that perspective. I've had a couple different videos out there. One when Shaka Smart left, then I kind of broke down who the candidates would be, and then when Chris Beard came on board. So with Chris Beard, it's interesting because so many people in this fan base have been, lusting after him for years, right? Like, especially after the run in 2019, Texas Tech goes to the national championship game, losing overtime to Virginia. And then meanwhile, Texas is either not making the tournament, we're on the bubble. We've got all these NBA guys that Shaka was doing a brilliant job recruiting, but we're not getting it done in March. And so people are looking at the Texas X and they're like, hey, that's the guy we need to go get. So a lot of lusting. But when you break down basketball, and I'm a basketball head, Chris Beard is a very good basketball coach, but he's not a basketball god or someone who is like a Coach K or something of that sort. At least not yet. I'll be fair. I mean, we're in the same conference. Last I checked, where Scott Drew just won a national championship.
Man,
the Baylor Bears.
Don't even get me started. I can't. There's only one Baylor fan I actually like. Shout out to Shehan Jayaraja. The rest of y'all kick rocks. I can't stand y'all, man. Like, and the way that they talking about that team, all right. I don't want to get you too far off topic. My bad.
Nah, you're good. You're good. But when you look at
long live Texas Western. My bad. Sorry.
Oh man, Glory Road for those of you who don't know. But with Chris Beard being on board, I think Texas is in a good situation. You have a coach that understands the conference, that has the skins on the wall from the tournament standpoint that Texas is looking for, that they're familiar with. And, he's saying all the right things, like the press conference killed it. The staff hires thus far, bringing back some of the OGs from the original Rick Barnes staff that got guys like TJ Ford and LaMarcus Aldridge and DJ Augustine and that whole crew. Because Rick Barnes was, people are going to ask me about Kevin Durant, but Rick Barnes recruited Kevin Durant personally. But that whole crew, like that's dope. But at the same token, I still think he could potentially have a lot of the same issues that Shaka Smart had here in terms of adapting a very aggressive, defensive manner, team first culture with superstar players. And that's hard. That's the business that college basketball really struggles in. And that's like a big contrast between college basketball and college football, right? Is the star buy-in of what I'm being asked to do and that level of responsibility to me getting to the league versus what's best for the team. Because Chris Beard, and I've said this on my videos, when he had some of those more talented people that came on board to Texas Tech after the run, they were a 500 team in the Big 12. That's just facts. Now I think he's a better fit for the Texas culture, if that makes any sense. And I also think Shaka Smart is going to kill it at Marquette because of that Big East vibe that they're in. So I think it was a move that was just beneficial for almost everyone involved.
No, I'll buy that. And, Texas lusting after other people's stuff is nothing new. That's not shade. That's just what it is. Like, when Lincoln Riley was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, Texas fans was like, yo, hey, what are we doing? Hey, cut the check, get him up out of there. And Bob did right by literally everyone and saying, nah, this is the guy. But I actually did want to talk to you a bit about Big 12 coaches, but not necessarily, in the basketball sphere, though.
Sure.
The hat tip to you and Texas, and I understand, Chris Beard is a big deal. Who wants the University of Kansas football job? Like, not who can they get, who wants it?
Who wants it? Right. I mean, at this point, and I've said this, I made this analogy before. If you're Kansas, you have to look at your situation as a startup. You got to go and look at this as like, look, what are the positives of Kansas football? Because there's not many. We're in the Big 12. We're in a Power 5 conference. We weren't terrible back in the Fighting Mangino days. I mean, they went to an Orange Bowl, right? And people have shown that they can do some things at Kansas given the proper situation. You do have, if people can win at Iowa State and other schools like that are up in that region, Kansas can have something. But I think you have to kind of have somebody come in with a different vision and approach of how they're going to, from recruiting on down. Because the Les Miles thing, I mean, granted, the whole that whole culture issue and sexual assault and all that craziness going on at LSU, that Kansas had to make that move, and I get that, but where were they even headed with him? Where were they going? They were still on the same path of horribleness. That's not a word, but like, they were just terrible. And so I think they have to take it from a startup approach, and somebody that's young or crazy or something that's just different. They got to be different. I'm talking about like craziness, like Georgia Tech when they decided to go the triple option, the ACC type different. Just do something completely different than everybody else is doing. That's the only thing I can think of for Kansas without putting any thought into it. RJ. They
are trotting out Jeff Monken as a dude that might first. They got to get an AD, is what I keep telling everybody. Like, and the AD is gonna, like, what I love most is that Jeff Long thought he was gonna outlive Les Miles after that firing. I'm like, nah, dog. I read the statement. You just said football is more important than these women. Nope. You can't stay. You made football the most important part of firing Les Miles at the time. That ain't gonna fly. Not today. Not in 2021. But I'm also looking at that going, you had a chance. Les Miles had a chance. You had Brent Dearman on staff, right? And that was a dude that had led the entire country, regardless of division, in points per game and total yardage per game, and was damn good at Bethel, right? Somehow that dude ends up at Middle Tennessee, for which I still haven't got a great explanation as to why. But outside of that, because I've trotted him out as a guy that they should make a phone call to, I look around and I think perhaps you want to go get the dude that knows how to recruit. And if he can recruit, perhaps he can put together a staff and you can strike lightning, right? Because when was the last time Kansas was good? When was the only time Kansas was good? Mark Mangino is your head coach. That's got his own set of problems. But they won an Orange Bowl. Like, Kansas football at one point in our lifetime was ranked number 3 in the country.
It's not that long ago.
2007. It
was like 13. Yeah, so 14 years ago. That's not that long ago where they were really good.
Right. So I'm looking at Kansas and I'm going, what dude is doing the most over there on Iowa State's staff, right? I'm looking at staffs in that way. I'm looking at Jim Leonhard going, how much does it take at Wisconsin? You know, do we have enough of this coin to offer you? We know that we are Kansas. You know that we are Kansas, but we are coming hat in hand going, yo, let's have a conversation about this. Or maybe like Brian Brown at Louisville. Remember him?
Can we pause at Jim? So you mean Brian Brown, like from the Brown family?
No. Brian Brown is Brien at he's defensive coordinator at Louisville, black defensive coordinator.
Oh, okay. I wanted to pause at Jim Leonhard. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool.
Because if you're here's the flip side of this though, and I think this is why it's so dangerous. Like Jim Leonhard, rockstar, DC, everybody knows he's got next, whatever he wants to do, and he's already, you know, I'm sure he's already been offered stuff in the past. But like, I understand money being a factor, but if I'm his agent or if I'm just I have investment in Jim Leonhard, like, why would this be the first job you take? Like, I don't want you to end up like some of these other coaches who end up in a horrible position. And now it's, I get, having that patience to want to rebuild, and at Kansas, you'll have that room, I think. But at the same token, it's not like going and getting like a Florida State job to rebuild either. So I'm just curious as to, that.
No,
aspect.
I mean, and you're right there. Also, let me correct my own spelling. It is the conventional Bryan, Brian Brown, defense coordinator at Louisville. But I get your point, because Florida State also isn't tradition. People forget this. Florida State was a women's university until like 1950. I don't want to put a number on it, but it's fairly recently that they became a co-ed university, and even more recently that they were good. Like, they weren't good until Bobby Bowden showed up, and Bobby Bowden had already been at West Virginia, right? So in many ways, Florida State is actually a pretty decent comp here, because Florida State is getting state money, right? It's one of the flagship universities. People forget Miami is a private school, right? It's Florida and Florida State. And Florida wasn't very happy about Florida State, right? To say nothing of what FAMU used to be. So I look at Kansas, and you got one other school. It's the Ag school. It's no disrespect to the Ags out there, but like Kansas gets the bulk of the money. Kansas gets the prestige. Kansas gets to build off of its basketball reputation, which is up there with UCLA and Duke, right? Duke, another one of those programs that wasn't any good until fairly recently. Like, Coach K shows up and you're good, right? Meanwhile, Duke's football program actually had more tradition and more accolades than the basketball program, and Steve Spurrier won a Heisman there. Imagine a Duke quarterback winning a Heisman. Like, that's still wild to me.
That's wild.
Yeah, but like, I wanted to bat that around because the Big 12 is only going to be as good as its bottom-dwelling teams, just like every other conference. Like, I know that we talk a lot, and we should, about the teams at the top of the conference and what those teams do as a reflection of how good the conference is. Like, we don't talk about the Pac-12 being good because the Pac-12 has not had a representative in the college football playoff since 2016, right? Whereas we talk about the SEC being good because Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Florida's not actually been to the college football playoff. Let me back up. LSU, right? And we can remember times in which Mississippi State and Ole Miss were top 5 programs. Meanwhile, West Virginia felt like it was getting good. Then a bunch of their kids went into the portal, right? But we'll see. Mm-hmm. Matt Wells is banking on skilled labor. Got a bunch of super seniors, right? Got a new quarterback in Tyler Shuck to go. We'll see what that looks like. We're starting.
I'm worried about Matt Wells, by the way.
Why are you worried about Matt?
Because the AD, that whole basketball thing of losing Chris Beard, if the AD gets canned, those Texas Tech people are upset right now, man. They're going through some things.
Yo, hey, look, Kirby Hokut's presser. Yo, like, no disrespect, but I was like, yeah, man, like, you jaded, like, you didn't, like, it's
scorned,
man, like I don't want to go too far off on this, but like,
I'm sorry.
And I was, because I'm trying to pull back how I really feel about Kirby Hokut saying the things he said about Chris Beard. Like, this man wouldn't even return my phone calls. I was blowing him up, He wouldn't block my number, so he wanted to see me crying, like, all of that. And I get it, because like, Kirby Hokut dealing with some boosters that were ready to go back a truck up to Art Briles. All right, like that was out there. And then Matt Wells had an opening offensive coordinator because he fired David Yost, and everybody's like, "Yo, you're not gonna hire Browse, right? Because they're gonna elevate that man right up underneath you." And he's like, "No, I'm gonna go get Sonny Cumbie. I'm gonna make that work." But like, I feel you. I understand. Anytime your AD feels like he's on shaky ground, you should feel like you're on shaky ground. But I want to actually move around the Big 12 a little bit more here.
Go ahead.
How do you feel about the Chandler Morris situation at Texas Christian?
So it's funny you bring that up, considering his daddy is now the head coach of the Allen Eagles.
Yeah, man.
And I'm just, it's just one of those things where it's just like decency at some point. Like, I understand the whole, well, Lincoln feels a certain type of way about people transferring within the conference and things of that sort. But like, we're talking about a kid that is going to his home area. I mean, not granted, TCU's in Fort Worth, and I know he's more of a Highland Park kid or whatever, but
that means something to y'all folks down there in Dallas.
Yeah, that's why I made the distinction.
Okay, I was about to say everywhere else,
not one area.
I was about to say everywhere else that doesn't actually matter. But yeah, I get it, and I'm we appreciate you, Dallas folks, and I understand some of y'all would go feel some kind of way about being lumped in with Fort Worth. I get it.
Because I've seen some other people say, well, he was just let him go home to Fort Worth. I'm like, whoa. He is not from Fort Worth. It's very, very different.
The money different. The housing different. The streets different.
Right. It just looks like, because, look, let's be real. 6 straight Big 12 titles. And yes, I'm the one that said it, not you. That's fine. But 6 straight Big 12 titles.
Ain't no nationals in there. Ain't no nationals in there.
No. But we're talking Big 12 right now, because this is a Big 12. This is a Big 12 matter. Okay. And you're basically the king of the court, right? And it's just like not even extending TCU mercy it's more about Chandler Morris, right? And what you promise those kids when you recruit them and wanting the best for them. And it's a bad look in 2021 when you have kids, and this is a greater issue I'm going to speak on real quick, but kids hitting the portal and kids moving around. Some of these kids are committing to schools that they've never really even visited. And I'm not saying that's the case for Chandler Morris at all, but, there's just so much, everything's so fluid in the world right now. And somebody wanting to get a little closer to home, stay within the conference, but the competitive advantage, like, people transfer all over the place, and no one knows that better than Lincoln Riley does. Nobody knows that better than he does in terms of benefit. So the block now, how his father plays into this now being the head coach of the Allen Eagles, I'm curious to get, your thoughts there, because I do think, from the political game that they have to play in recruiting, that matters.
And I said it as much. I made like one real reaction video to this news, but my point is, Riley looks dirty doing it. I don't like it. Having your principles is one thing, but this is a man who would tell everybody up and down that penalizing kids for smoking weed is draconian. And I would say penalizing a kid that wants to transfer in conference is also draconian, because A, you're a quarterback whisperer. You have one of the best offenses, the best offense over the last 10 years, right? Period. If you take him all the way back to East Carolina, nobody else factors into this discussion. Every quarterback you throw out there can play, and you can't throw everyone out there. Now, that said, Chandler Morris scored a touchdown in the Big 12, got to run one in, right? Like in the game that mattered, the championship. But also, I just believe that a man making $6 million a year, telling a child who has 5 years to play for, that he cannot go play football is wrong. And then you take into account, you mentioned, the Allen Eagles and Chad Morris going back basically where he built his reputation, state of Texas, as a high school football coach. Allen gave Oklahoma Kyler Murray by way of Texas A&M, but still, Allen gave Theo Weiss to Oklahoma, right? He's going to be your starting wide receiver alongside Jaden Hazelwood, Marvin Mims, and them. Allen put Greg Little out there. I mean, we know who Allen is, right? $60 million stadium renovation a couple years ago, or maybe it's like 10. I can't place it. But you want to recruit there. And more than that, you want to recruit the area as much as anything else. And we know that the way in which other coaches recruit negatively against you, and we know how high school football coaches also hold grudges. Like, my favorite is Brandon Harris came out of a place in Louisiana not too long ago, because Brandon Harris is now on staff at Texas. That's how old I am.
Shout to Brandon Harris, new director of recruiting at University of Texas.
Bro, I remember watching Brandon Harris throw passes at a rivals camp in Dallas. That is how old I am. I'm going, my God. Anyway, had a coach, Nick Saban asked, what can we see him? It's like, are you offering him? It's like, yeah, well, sure. It's like, okay, how many quarterbacks you offered? I don't know, 7. Okay, so you haven't offered anybody. Like, they keep these notes, right? They keep these notes on you, and they will bring these things up, because the thing that I think people forget is not every high school is pushing out blue chippers every single year. They might get one every 5 or 6 years that Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, LSU wants. And they want to know that kid is going to play football, preferably every down, but also at the position that he played in high school. Like, one of the things I get the biggest kick out of is finding out which kids are playing out of position. Like,
Ooh, yeah.
My favorite is Buki, right? He's going at Washington, and I've told my Washington friends, if Jimmy Lake puts him at slot corner, I'm flipping a table, because that man is a boundary corner. Okay, that's who he is. But how many quarterbacks do we know about playing linebacker, safety, defensive back, playing running back, wide receiver, right? At Allen, you get to put those dudes straight into your scheme. Like, there is no moving them around. They're that good. And I gotta believe, Chad Morris, who was in the stands watching his kid play against Kansas on a bye week, is going to forget that you were not going to let his kid play college football. Like, what parent would forget that? What parent would be like, no, it's a business thing about my kid? No. So I just didn't see it as a win for Lincoln. And I get having principles, and I get, fall for anything or whatever it is people say. But this is not the hill to die on. Not for me anyway.
No. And I think to go back to the first thing you said, it's just doing right by the kid, because whether, like, Chandler Morris's father's influence shouldn't play on whether or not this is the right or wrong thing to do. We're just adding that as another layer of complexity here for Lincoln Riley to deal with. But most kids aren't in that position, right? Most kids, like, my dad, works a normal job or is, not involved in football or athletics, right? And so there is, like, I'm basically having to advocate for myself. And I agree. I couldn't agree with you more, just in terms, that's a miss by Lincoln Riley, in my opinion.
So I want to throw this one at you as a Texas guy, and because it's a question, like, the questions that people want me to answer, the things they want me to talk about, always just kind of shocks me, because I'm thinking, really? That low-hanging fruit? That's what we're doing? All right, cool. So I'm going to give this to you. Is Caleb Williams going to push Spencer Rattler for the starting quarterback job in 2021?
No. What are Spencer Rattler's Heisman odds by chance? Did anybody not see the way he played the last half of the season? His growth. Again, this is me watching from the other side, right? The other side of the 50 in Dallas. The kid that got benched and had to come out and have a sit by me situation with Lincoln Riley, to what we saw him progress round 2 against Iowa State, and how he played, the Florida game, and now everybody's excited about him being a Heisman. I understand the recruiting prowess that Caleb Williams brings in. He's Superman, all that, and how he's been a wonderful recruiter for Oklahoma. Social media, doing all the right things. But I don't understand why people, and not some fans, not all, but I don't understand why some fans like to put this ridiculous. I mean, yeah, should Caleb Williams push Spencer Rattler in practice and spring and push him to where he's giving his best every day? Absolutely. But challenge him for the starting position. I mean, what do you understand? Like, he would have to be like, it would have to be like a Trevor Lawrence, Kelly Bryant type gap for that to happen. I do not see that with Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams.
So odds on Rattler winning the Heisman are the best in the country. He's getting plus 300. That's 3-1. Next dude on the list is DJ Uiagalelei. Then you're talking about JT Daniels, but I think those odds are gonna actually go up because George Pickens is probably out for the year. And for the sake of this conversation, Bijan Robinson is at 30-1, right? And then there's Casey Thompson a little bit further behind, Jace McClellan, Malik Cunningham at Louisville, and C.J. Stroud in Florida. So, at Ohio State. Emory Jones at Florida. But like, I'm looking at it. By the way, Jack Miller's getting better Heisman odds than C.J. Stroud, which I'm sure is going to be. Actually, no, they're both getting 40-1. Okay, good. Because I was about to say that's going to be news in Columbus. But like, there are a lot of people that are like C.J. Stroud, and I'm like, I can't call it.
There's one other person I wanted to ask if they were on the list. That's a complete wild card, but
please.
The kid from Oregon, is Tyler Schroe.
Tyler Shuck.
Shuck. Yeah, that transferred from Oregon to Texas Tech since we brought up Wells earlier.
He's getting the same odds as Sean Clifford, British Brooks, Joe Milton, Zamir White, Bo Nix, Max Duggan, Talia Tagovailoa, Jarrett Doege, and Desmond Ridder, which is plus 10,000 or 100-1.
Desmond Ridder?
Hey, Desmond Ridder is a lot of people's sexy pick to be QB1 next year. I'm not kidding. Like, when I talk to
he put some respect on his name, people.
Hey, look, I don't see it because here's the thing. I'm also a TU fan, right? So like I'm watching the American. Like I am in on the Gus bus. Like Gus came to my university when I was still in college. Like I saw Gus walk in doing 5 sets of 5 at 175 on incline and leave wearing like a sweater vest or whatever because Gus is Gus. But I'm all to say I watch a lot of American football. I watch a lot of football, period. You know this. But the point there being, I ain't seeing it with no Desmond Ridder, dog. I don't see it. I don't see it. I see it with Cincy last year, but I'm also one of the biggest Marcus Freeman fans in the world. And I'm going to be interested to see what their defense looks like next year because they got dudes on that defense. Like, they're probably going to have 4 guys that play NFL football next year. Maybe all 4 get drafted on defense. They were that stacked. But I watched Desmond Ridder and I'm going, is this your king? Is this your king? Because I watched Cincinnati Tulsa and I was going, whoever got the better quarterback gonna win this game. And Desmond Ridder outplayed Zach Smith, and I'm going, that's how bad Zach Smith was. But no, I think the respect needed to be put on the defense. I just don't see it with Ridder. In the same way that I don't see it with Clifford, but we'll see what happens with Yurcich. Like I like Clifford better to win a Heisman Trophy than I do Ridder, but that's a lot to do with Yurcich and James Franklin and recruiting. But like, it says everything to me that Bo Nix has the same odds as Desmond Ridder to win the Heisman Trophy. Says everything.
That's fair.
So now that we have put to bed the Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler discussion, who's going to be the starting quarterback at Texas? Hudson Card or Casey Thompson?
To start the season, I think it's still going to be Casey Thompson. I think he'll earn the start against Louisiana. I think right now, spring practice, they got slowed down.
Wait, real quick. Are you terrified of that game? Because I think you should be terrified of that game.
I am.
Okay.
I am. And again, those of you who are following Fanatic Perspective on YouTube, subscribe. We're going to 10,000 subscribers. I'm very excited. Thanks to many of you.
My man.
Thanks to many of you appearing on this channel. I'm waving. If you can't see me, I'm waving right now. Thank you. But I am terrified of that game. Any video you see me make, look, I'm not. There's some Kool-Aid to drink. I'm not drinking all the Kool-Aid like that. All right, like there has to be. And I've said this before. I think I said this the last time I talked to you. We're in the honeymoon phase right now. Spring is full of. When you look at your team, you're looking at it from a standpoint of, oh, This depth chart is full of strengths and question marks. There are no weaknesses, just question marks. So when you're looking at a quarterback position right now, can't necessarily say it's a strength because Casey Thompson's played just a little bit, albeit he's played very well when we've gotten to see him, and Hudson Card really hasn't played at all. So it's a question mark, but it's an exciting one. You're talking about the quarterback at the University of Texas. You're talking about the quarterback who's replacing Sam Ehlinger, Casey Thompson, taking it one step forward, say, hey, I want to rock the number 11 because that's my number from high school, and Sam's gone, so I'm gonna come up on that. That's dope. I like his energy, and the thing is, what he's competing against with Hudson Card is the potential aspect. And there's two ways for me that I look at it, where you look at like last year, Steve Sarkisian had a situation with Mac Jones, with Tua Tagovailoa leaving for the NFL. He had Mac Jones, but he had that stud Bryce Young right behind him that everybody was saying, oh, it's just a matter of time until he unseats Mac Jones. And Mac Jones became Mac Jones because pushed him, he got even better and became what he became. Or you look at Kelly Bryant, the example I used earlier, Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence. Now, I think Casey Thompson, in those comparisons, I think Casey Thompson's now being underrated in terms of his talent and skill set. I think he's being underrated now. Because even some of the talent you saw in that brief appearance in the Colorado game, dude, I'll even tell you, like, I was like, oh, there's definitely more meat on the bone and upside from a arm talent standpoint than even with Sam Ehlinger. That's an upgrade. Like, I'm okay with saying that. I'm not saying it's a better leader or any of those things, but in terms of what I saw, skill set, speed, throwing the ball, everything, execute and run the offense, especially the deep shot he took on Vontae Dixon, we hadn't seen that in a minute at Texas in terms of that. And so if they're saying behind the scenes, and from what I saw in my own eye of Hudson Card at Lake Travis High School, he can spin it. There's all that stuff is real. I've seen it with my own eyes. But the question is, who is going to be able to move the offense that Steve Sarkisian feels comfortable with in his opening? Because he doesn't want to be Tom Herman, Maryland Part 2, right? He wants to go in there and say, who gives me the best chance to win up front? But as we've seen with these quarterback things, I think it's going to play into the season potentially. But in terms of who opens as our starter, I would be surprised if it's not Casey Thompson, to be honest with you, as of right now while we're talking.
I think of it as who is existing between the half second, between the snap, and handing the ball to Bijan Robinson. But that's just me, right? We also know that I'm way out in front going, Casey Thompson is a better quarterback than Sam Ehlinger 2 years ago. So I picked a horse, right? In the way that and I think it should say something, that I feel confident in the horses that I pick, as opposed to, hey, if I don't know, I don't know. But last thing I'm gonna hit you with is you get the SEC or you get the field to win the national championship in 21. What's your football brain tell you?
I'll go field.
Okay. What makes you confident?
I'll go field. There's no reason. So Alabama, I love Alabama, but it's so much. And so my two teams that I was really high on in the SEC, Alabama, but now, upon revision of how things are going, and there's still going to be Alabama. I'm not saying there's going to be a drop-off, but we're saying, are they going to run it back as national champions with everything they lost and Bryce Young taking over? I think there could be potential for a step back. Georgia, who I was higher on than anybody else that I, at least in my world, I hate the fact that they lost George Pickens. I hate that for him, number one, because we may not see George Pickens again until the NFL at this point. Now, I know Blaylock's coming back. That's huge. Jermaine Burton's going to take a step up, and they got, my man Washington at time. Like, JT Daniels still has so much around him, so it's not the end-all, be-all. But I do have questions about Georgia. But Oklahoma is looking more appealing. Ohio State, I think, whether it's whoever plays quarterback over there, whether it's Stroud or Jack Miller or whoever. But some of these other teams out here, I don't have there's no fewer questions that I have about them than I do about Georgia. So that's just kind of where my head's going, but I'm curious what your take is there.
I picked Oklahoma to win the national championship, and I've been basically picking Oklahoma to win the national championship at 21 for the past 2 years, mostly on the strength of the 2019 recruiting class, knowing what Rattler is, knowing the guys that wanted to play with him, and knowing how Lincoln Riley was committed to the defense after, firing Mike Stoops, bringing in Alex Grinch, seeing that Alex Grinch not only flipped the program, but finished top 15 in SP+. I think this is the window year, just like 2017 was the window year. And if you don't win it this year, it's going to be a couple of years, right? I also think that Ohio State is a quarterback away, like literally. And if C.J. Stroud, Jack Miller, Kyle McCord can spin it, they're going to be right there because I just don't see a team in the Big Ten that's going to be able to beat them. Though Indiana gets Michael Penix Jr. back, you might be able to tell me something, right? See what Penn State looks like. And then Oregon feels good. USC feels good. So I really want to see if they can meet up again in the championship game, this time with Oregon actually winning the division. And then see, if one of those teams is undefeated as well. Oregon plays Ohio State. I think that's a play-in game right away. Whoever wins that game in September has their shoe in the door. Whoever loses that game, they're going to have to hope somebody else gives them an opening. So I'm picking the field, but the reason I phrased it that way is precisely because the SEC is the SEC. LSU is talented. If you gave me LSU versus Texas right now, I would have a very difficult time picking against LSU on sheer talent because the way I feel about LSU this year is the way that I felt about Texas in 2020. It was all there if y'all could put it together. And things happen. I get all of that, right? You got to get past Iowa State in their magic year. And for whatever reason, Gary Patterson finds a way to pull up to your house and bust off shots. He can do it. Nobody likes getting up for Texas like Gary Patterson, not even Oklahoma. But I look at Georgia in very much the same way. This is a magic year for them. They're talented all throughout that conference, and that's really what the discussion is about. How do people get to the SEC's level? That is Steven Ngati. Catch him over at Fanatic Perspective. Catch him on Twitter at fan_perspective. The man is keeping you up on all things Texas. He even talks about college basketball. I learned something when he says something. It's not something I can say about a lot of sports talk show hosts. Y'all know how I feel about this. I try to stay in my lane as much as I can every now and again. I'll swoop over here into some OU softball because I don't know if you know this, Ngati, but the women are 28-0. The women have won 35 straight. The women have outscored people 33-1, 22-2. The women have Jocelyn Alo. It's some real hella Thor Ragnarok type stuff here. Kneel before your queen.
Okay.
Patty Gasso is the best coach in this state, period, maybe of all time. I'm telling you, June is going to be fun over here because I cover softball coming up, right? One of my favorite stories ever I wrote about it, the best two-way softball player ever, also went to Oklahoma. You can catch me for that, is what I'm saying. You can catch him for all the other stuff over there at Texas. I'm not going to hit. No, I'm not even going to pretend.
I love it.
I ain't going to pretend. But no, let me get the second shot of this vaccine. And come June, I might need to go see what's up in Oklahoma City because this team is monsters. I'm so excited about them. So excited. Matter of fact, to finish this out, they had the series against Baylor canceled, I think for COVID-related reasons. And they're saying, slide into our DMs. We will pay for you to get stomped out. To play against us. They're going for records, man. That's the only way I can think about this. It's no, we need every game we can get because we want the record. We want the record for consecutive wins. Stupid.
I love it.
Stupid.
I love your enthusiasm. I obviously I'm a Texas fan, but I love the enthusiasm. Shout out to the Texas women's track team. They've been dominating.
Oh, yeah. How'd they do at Texas Relays?
They handled their business. Okay. That's how it went.
Okay, that's what's up. All right. That's it for us.